Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut. I'm here with Bobby Atkins, and we are at Real Estate Jerky, and this is the Veterans Edition.
Yes.
Yeah, we decided to go VA on our stuff on Tuesdays and Thursdays because nobody else is.
Yeah. And you and I were just talking off camera about maybe we could pepper in some old Navy stories too.
We can do that, but I don't know if people want to. I don't have really like major Navy stories.
I have some pretty crazy deployment stories.
Yes, I never got deployed. My biggest thing was stationed at Camp Pendleton with Marines, and I worked at the hospital, and so I was like MASH. There wasn't major stories.
You know what's crazy, man, is like everybody can go in and have a completely different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could be side by side, right?
But I bet you while you were in the service, you never jumped over a rattlesnake.
No.
Because at Camp Pendleton, there's a lake that was close to the hospital where it was originally, the original hospital, not the new hospital, which is by the front gate.
Yeah.
Which makes more sense because it's easier to get to. Because the biggest problem when San Onofre, you know where San Onofre is?
No.
That's San Clemente.
San Clemente, yeah.
So there was a little station out there for the Marines when they do all their stuff. If you had an ambulance out there and then somebody got hurt, you had to go all the way into the middle of the base down the windy roads. You couldn't take the freeway. Now you can take the freeway and come into the front gate, and actually so much faster to get there. It makes more sense.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
So there's my one Navy story.
Yeah.
But what I want to get into is because a couple things in this market. I'll get into the benefits of VA loan over the next couple of videos or on Thursday. I don't know yet. If we have enough time, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is people are asking me, how do I get my VA loan accepted? Because I've been seeing stories everywhere in this market with such tight inventory and they're taking, over asking all this. How do I get my VA home loan accepted? Now, unless the person selling their house is a veteran and they're keyed on helping veterans, a lot of them are going to go with the best price, period.
Yeah.
So one of the things I thought of is include that you have money, include a bank statement showing that you have money to go over asking or pay for other stuff.
Yeah.
What do you recommend?
Yeah, exactly. Send in a proof of funds. I know some people are reluctant to do that, but I think that's showing that you're willing to be in the game, right? And if you're saving that 3.5% down, use that as a negotiating tool. And I've even written escalation clauses before, right? Where I'll say, say I know somebody has some cash to kind of play. I'll say that my buyer will go, $1,500 above the highest and best offer with proof of highest and best. Right.
Right.
And that's a good way. If you have, $17,000-$20,000 that you're not putting down on the loan, you can use that to try and get your offer accepted and get in that house. And you know what? I just had one recently that the appraisal came in a little bit higher than what I was expecting. So for a while, their appraisals were coming in way low.
Yeah, they're not. That's just because of what are we in? We're in August. When was that they were coming in low? March?
Yeah, that was, probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's always that way in March.
Yeah. Just because there's lack of inventory or lack of
They go back 90 days.
Yeah.
And December is usually not the busiest month.
True.
January is not the busiest month. And we have a lot of rain and weather, which we had this year. We had tons of rain. So nobody was really, people were still looking, but nobody likes to go looking in when it's really, really hot, or if it's really, really rainy, they don't like to go to open houses or do all that, go to different places. And it just has to do with the weather. We always have issues no matter when it is, usually in March. It's just weird. March and April, those months just show the values have went up to that.
Yeah.
But once you get through the summertime, it's no problem.
I was going to say, at least we don't have to deal with snow, at least, well, not down here.
Well, it's Tuolumne County, and that was the thing.
Yeah.
Nothing really sold the first 3 months or even came on the market. And then they everything that was supposed to, those 3 months all happened in April. Yeah. And then since then, it's been a little bit slower.
Gotcha.
But it's like everywhere. You have to put the property on the market in order for it to be sold. And it's just not, people don't want to get rid of their low interest rates.
Yeah.
And the one thing nice about a VA loan, you can assume it, because somebody asked me the other day, how easy is it to assume a VA loan? I said, it's not that difficult. It's 30 to 45 days through the lender that has it. The downside is, what's the property worth and how do you make up the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the big issue. Because if it was a normal market being 4 to 5% appreciation, it wouldn't matter. You're only going up, on a $500,000 house. 1% on that is $5,000. So you're only going up $20,000 on a normal market. So if it was a year, it's not a big deal. We're not in that normal market.
Yeah. Here's a little more extreme example, right? But maybe kind of just show the contrast. So I bought my house 12 years ago for 235,000, and it's probably worth about 525 right now.
Right.
But my remaining loan balance is like 180. So that would be like it'd be not at all worth it to try and assume my loan.
Right. When that's the thing, is it's only works if it's in the last year, maybe 2 years max, because we appreciated 66% from 2020 through 2020 in middle of 22. That's a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Good and gosh. So that's what I'm saying, unless it's something like a job transfer, right? And you got a low rate because you have to leave now and a year later, which there's some of those. Yeah. And then you make up the difference, but it's got to make sense. You got to run the numbers to see if it makes sense. I got to see what that payment is versus what the difference is with whatever you got to bring in. So it doesn't, if it's a conventional, they're going to normally put 20% down. Well, not a big deal if they're going to do that anyway. Have that money, assume the first, no big deal. It's just how do you make up the difference?
Yeah.
And so it's a good program going forward. But I think a lot of people are not aware of everything that's involved with the VA loan as even a veteran, how great the program is.
Well, and when you kind of tie in what you're talking about earlier, as far as like, maybe if the person is a veteran, they're going to be more apt to take that offer. Mm-hmm. That is true, provided it still competes. Because I did have one situation where it was a veteran buddy of mine, and he was so torn, man. We sat there for 20 minutes going over it, and he's like, but this one's $15,000 more. I'm like, that's your call.
Yeah. Go back to him and say, can you match?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't able to compete. That was, yeah.
And that's going to be the other issue. You want to do it, but it's got to make sense for the seller. This market is very unique when it's this way.
Well, I mean, that's just like when you have investors, right? Like you really want to see, someone buy their first home, and this investor comes in with $30,000 over everyone else. You're like, financially, it's not a decision to be made. I mean.
Right. Well, and unless you're one of those, I stand by my principles and I don't care about money. It's about doing what's right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying, unless you're, what I mean, there are some people like that. They're like, I don't care about the money. I'm going to do this. But not everybody's that way.
I took a lower offer on my first house because the agent told me, she's like, look, I've been working with this guy for a year and a half. We've written so many offers, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take his offer.
Yeah. Well, and again, it just depends. But the most important thing about this is, in this market, how do you make it more beneficial for your offer to stand out as a veteran? Yeah. Because normally you don't have to show earnest money deposit, right? On most transaction, veterans get their EMD back, the earnest money deposit. It's weird because there's just enough money in there to do it without that. Mm-hmm. My son closed on his first home a few months ago, and he got all his EMD back.
Nice.
Yeah. And so it just depends on the situation. But if you're going to show that you have the earnest money deposit, is usually about 1%, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Of the sales price. So
correct.
If it's a $500,000 house, 1% is
$5,000.
Thank you. I knew that. I just want to see if anybody else
math whiz.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have to show that you have that money. Well, show that you have more money in case they want to, come back to you and say, hey, we have this offer for this. Yeah. Will you come up 15,000? If the appraisal doesn't come in, are you willing to go $5,000 over that?
Yeah.
Most vets would say yes, because the down payment that we don't have to do is because we actually signed on the line to potentially go to war, or actually, unfortunately, went and saw combat. And that's your down payment. Because I've had agents ask me before, well, my seller says, why do they get no down payment? That's why.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess coming from my spot, I would be offended, but yeah.
Offended, just they don't understand. You're asking the civilian world to understand the military world, and they don't understand the jobs. They don't understand anything about it. The closest thing they understand is if they ever watched MASH, right? That was so long ago. That was a Korean War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that what that was based off Korean?
I swear it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think, because they were not in Vietnam, were they? North and South Korea. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. That was the Korean War. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah, I watched it as a kid, man, but I didn't understand which war it would have been.
Yeah. Well, it's not the Vietnam War, because that would be really bad.
Oh, because it was going on at the time, right?
Well, I think the 70s. No, that war was over 68. I think it was 68 into 71, and I think MASH came out in the 70s.
Gotcha. So that'd be.
I'm too young to know when it actually came out. My parents watched it, so I watched it on reruns, and then I still watch it to this day.
Gonna be too soon to make a comedy show about a war that just ended, right?
Well, they tried to do 68 whiskey. I don't know if you heard about that. which is that's the number as a medic in the Army. And it was so bad it only lasted like 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was not the same person, like, because originally MASH was an Army, right? MASH stands for Mobile Army Mobile Hospital, or whatever it stands for.
Gotcha.
Right. It was an Army thing. No, they'd 68 Whiskey is another Army thing. And I thought, oh, this would be cool. This would be my son's in there. It was so bad. The acting was bad.
Oh, now when was that show when did it come out?
Just a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't something that was competing and then
no, just recently, like 2 years ago. It's called 68 Whiskey.
Gotcha.
And it was, no good. But you got to remember, Army is the largest military force of all the services. It's like if you put the Marines, the Air Force, and the Navy together, Army's still bigger than them.
No kidding. Yeah, I haven't checked numbers in a long time, man, since I was in, but I've heard that recruiting's been way down.
Recruiting right now they're down, all of them are done 12 to 15,000 of the people they need. And that's the problem. And so they were taking anybody, and that's another problem.
Well, and at the time that I went in, it was kind of the same thing, right? Like the military was soft. And so there was some folks, man, that they were, getting like a 45 on the ASVAB, and they're like, it's in a boot camp, and they kind of got worked out.
He can put a bullet in a chamber.
I'm gonna tell the story, man. With no judgment. I felt bad for this guy, right?
Right.
So the dude was 35 years old, and I knew that he was.
I thought the shut off was 27.
No, 35 is the cutoff.
Oh,
yeah, 27 is for special forces. No. But I knew he was that age because he told me, he's like, I just barely made it. He was from somewhere in like Indiana. But he definitely had some developmental delays, we'll say that, right? And he actually got discharged, man, because he wet the bed like 3 times at boot camp.
That's too bad.
Yeah. And I know that because he was above me. And then one day I, came in and they're like, oh yeah, he's been discharged.
Well, thank God.
But it's like, why would they put that poor guy through that? Because they were desperate for recruiting at the time.
Yeah, well, it just depends on when it is. And we went to war, and unless we go to another war, we're not going to probably need as many people, and we're going to use more machines than people on the on the battlefield. But there is going to be a need for special forces and other stuff like that.
So let me tell you something that another veteran said to me, and I don't know if they realized that it came across as rude. But they go, oh, so when'd you go? And I was like, I went in September of 2000. Like, oh, so you signed up before you knew we were going to go to war. I signed up after 9/11.
Is that because he's better?
I was like, okay,
that's great. Well, it just doesn't matter when you go, and that's the problem. Is the difference, because we had a guy last week who spoke at Rotary. And he was a Marine. I think we talked about who he was a Marine for 10 years. And he was in prison for 23. And he was telling his story because he has a YouTube. He was on a TED Talk. So they watched it. And then after he told the story, went through the whole thing. And one of them asked, is it just, how many of the people with PTSD is combat? And he's like, 50%. But he goes, it doesn't matter. He goes, the problem is we all support them. And he goes to the story. Did I tell you the story? Okay, well, I'll just go anyway.
Yeah.
Real quick. All right, so they're on all Marines that go on the Navy ships, right? Because that's how they get transported, because they're a Department of the Navy. Just to let you know, Marines, just remind you that you're a Department of the Navy, and they get them ready to go out. And the same guys help them. The same Navy guys help them all the time, get their stuff together, put everything in. Then they go out and they come back. The same guys help them both times. Well, they went on his last time out. He came back without his people. He was the only one that came back. And then one gentleman who was helping his buddy and a couple other ones went back to, he was asking, where is he? And he's like, so he didn't make it. And he went back to his birthing area and committed suicide. So it's one of those things that you lose. Doesn't matter if you're supporting people, you lose those people. And like he said, there is no other bond like it when you're with your brothers or sisters in the Navy, whatever Marine, whatever military you are, and somebody dies on the battlefield, and it just, you have such a loss from it. It's like a mother and a son, kid situation.
Yeah.
So it's bad. So understand us. Veterans are a little messed up, but help us out.
Take our offers, please.
Bottom line, help out a bit. I know. Just go back to them and say, hey, this is where we're at. Can you meet it? We'd like to help you, but we have to do what's best for our sellers because they need that money in this market. Because you got to remember, you need all the money you can get in this market to go where you want to go.
Yeah. And we've been talking about it, for months now, that it's life events, right? So, in the rare occasion, you might have somebody who is retiring and this has been their nest egg, right? And so they definitely need every dime they can get.
Right. Or they're moving to another state and they want to pay cash for stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had a few people come up to, call me and say, hey, they thought for sure they're going to have enough money to pay cash. They're short about 30 grand. Can you do a loan for them? It's like, no, I can't.
No. Yeah.
Go get a HELOC. What? I'm like, yeah, I have a minimum 120 to 130. And that's a lot of people for first mortgages to have it past QM, which is qualified mortgage. That's the whole thing that the bond administration put in to get past, so we never mess up and take advantage of people again, which we never did.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that in there. But they put that and it comes back and it fails. And so we can't do the loan. So that's the problem. And so I tell them, I said, go get a HELOC or do the loan for 120, 130. And then after your 6 payment, call them up, get it recasted by adding all that extra money you want to pay it down to 30,000 after your 6 payment. Recasting is $180. But then they go, but I got to make payments for 6 months. Right. So go get a HELOC.
Yeah. I was going to say that don't be prideful in that situation, right? Just
go get a HELOC.
Yeah.
And be done with it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.
No problem. And thanks for being here. And I hope you like our change that we're going to help vets out. This will be also on Bobby's, what's your name of your group?
VA home. Well, now you asked me, man, I just had a brain fart.
VA home buyers, VA homes.
Yeah. I think it's VA home buyers. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll make sure you verify that for the next show.
Okay.
All right. Everyone make it a great day. Thanks for being here. And thanks for watching. If you like what we do, subscribe to both of our YouTube channels.